What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the A-Side. I'm your host, Riley, and today we're covering the Smashing Pumpkins album, Seer. It came out today. Smashing Pumpkins is a pretty legendary rock band at this point. Everyone probably knows who they are. They've done a lot of big things. They've really influenced kind of the music community as a whole. They've made some classics, and they've really gotten around. A lot of people in the last few years have said they've been slacking. I haven't really kept up with their discography all that much. I am familiar with their earliest of works and what people mostly acclaim to be their best, including debut album Gish, follow-up Siamese Dream, and then their third album Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, which I would call this band's masterpiece. It's a pretty amazing album. That brings us to today, 2020, Seer, their newest album. And on this album, they go for more of a kind of new wave, kind of synthy direction for this album. And it's definitely something different for this band. It's not something they've really ever experimented with before. And I think it starts off kind of pretty interesting. I think the instrumentals here are very well done. I think a lot of the album sounds really good, and they pull off kind of this electronic synthwave, new wave, kind of post-punk sound better than you would think, and you can really hear that at the beginning of the album with The Color of Your Love, Confessions of a Dopamine Addict, and title track Seer. I think are pretty good indications of what this album sounds like, and I think it starts off really well, like I said, very interesting. I like some of the lyrics in The Color of Your Love. The color of your love is gray is a pretty cool lyric. Maybe it gets a little repetitive, but I do like it. Dulcet and E is pretty utterly forgettable. I think is one of the worst songs on this album. But Wrath is really great. I think the song is really blissful, and a lot of electronics it pulls off. And I think Ramona is a really fun song too. And that's the thing, like I said, this album starts off really good, actually. I think the beginning really kind of captures this sound and is very interesting. This kind of new wave electronic sound is really interesting on Smashing Pumpkins at first. The problem is, as the album goes on, it starts to get boring. Not enough changes. The songs start to become unmemorable, and they start to really blend into each other. And that wouldn't be such a problem with the first kind of solid, 6 songs, with the exception of Dulcet and E. Except for the fact that the track, this album is 20 tracks long. It's an hour and 12 minutes. It goes on for a very long time. So when this early in the album, after track 6, stuff starts to blend together and get boring, you've got a lot of time to get through the rest of this album, and it just doesn't really do much. I think Minerva is a pretty decent closing track, but besides that, there's really not much I can grab onto. It gets very formulaic and very repetitive, and then these tracks just, like I say, blend with each other and become very uninteresting and kind of hard to sit through. I don't think it's bad by any means, but it's definitely very boring. Like I said, the instrumentation is done really well, and 2 lovely ladies give beautiful background vocals that I think work really great, and I think the synths are done well. They sound good. They pull it off. And the production is good. Everything is good. Just all these songs sound the same and start to blend together, and the album gets really boring in the last 3 quarters. Another really big problem I have with this album is lead singer Billy Corgan himself. Now, Billy Corgan is very talented. He's a good writer. He wrote songs like Today and Bullet with Butterflies and Wings. He can write, and he's a good vocalist. But here's the thing, I don't think his vocals always necessarily work with this kind of electronic synthwave sound. I think they clash. A lot of the times it sounds like Billy is singing and recording to a backing track that his vocals aren't being put on top of. And even the songs I like The Color of Love, you can kind of hear that and how it doesn't always necessarily work. The big exception to this is Save Your Tears, where I think everything on this song kind of clicks together really well, including Billy Corgan's voice, and I think it works here. So, the only other track I really want to talk about was Purple Blood. I would say it's one of the worst songs on the album, not because it's bad, it just doesn't work. They try a lot of different sounds and to kind of segment the song a little bit. And it happens. Some of they're trying to, like, a more loud, kind of heavy, aggressive, electronic on this song, and it doesn't sound the best, but it's not terrible. And that's the thing about this album, is it isn't terrible. It's not a miss, but it's not really a hit either. You know, it's just a lot of it kind of blends together and doesn't work all too interestingly. Like I said, most of these songs can be, you know, switched in the track listing and it wouldn't affect anything, because really you don't remember any of them. It's so unmemorable, and it's not a bad album, like I said, but it's not necessarily good either, and it's a far cry from a masterpiece of an album like Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. And I know it's not really fair to compare them, but this is like the first double album they've made since then, I believe, as something I heard. And, you know, it's too long. It's 72 minutes, and it doesn't do enough to stay interesting. Like I said, a lot of these songs just really blend together, and it's not necessarily a bad thing when your album is very cohesive and blends together. This is a very vibey album. It's something you can put on in the background and vibe to, but it's too long. When you get bored after the 6th track is the thing, and you can't really vibe out with an album for that long when it's just strictly a vibe. It's not like Melancholy Infinite Sadness. Yeah, that album's over 2 hours long, but it has so many different kind of sounds. It's so eclectic and diverse in the things it brings, and you've got super heavy songs like Bullet with Butterfly's Wings, but then you've got Orchestrated, like Tonight Tonight, but then you've got a song like By Starlight, which is this beautiful ballad, and all these different kind of things in between. And that's why the album works for 2 hours, because it keeps things interesting, whereas a lot of these songs just kind of blend together. The only one that's really not in this style is Witch, which actually comes about halfway through the album. It's got like this sludgy guitar, very distorted, kind of closer to what they would have done before, like on Gish, kind of. Not necessarily, but that's the first thing that pops into my head. So it's closer to their early stylings of the more kind of heavier. Of course, the synths are still there, but the sludgy guitars are a little more interesting and sound a little different than the rest of this track listing. And I think it works that it's about halfway through the album, so at least you get a little bit of something different after this album starts to fade. But overall, I just think it's really boring. Like I said, it's not a miss, but it's not really a hit either. I'm feeling a 5 out of 10 on this album, personally. If you're a Smashing Pumpkins fan, you might really like this album. I respect the fact that they went in a different direction after all these years, and I think a fan might really kind of embrace and enjoy and admire the fact that Billy Corgan and crew made the artistic decision to do something different. Either that, or you're really going to hate it. One of the two. But I thought it was boring. It just really wasn't for me. Like I said, I don't think it's bad by any means. Smashing Pumpkins have their place. I do like this band. I own their debut album on vinyl. I want to get Melancholy and Siamese Dream eventually. Melancholy is really expensive, though. But, yeah, that's all I have to say about Seer. I kind of just wanted to get it out of the way quickly enough to talk about it. So, let me know what you thought of this album. Like, subscribe, or don't, whatever. Comment. Say how your day was if you haven't listened to this album. I like to read the comments. Anyway, see you later.